I'm going to take you on a little tour of the workspace here, the user interface. I'm using the project that I demonstrated earlier in this module, but I've changed things a little bit. I'll explain those changes in a second. The workspace is organized into frames and panels. The frames are these things outlined by blue, and the panels are these individual things within those frames. And you can get a better sense of that by just clicking on one to make it active, and you see the blue frame there. In this particular case, it's just one panel in the frame, so basically the panel and the frame are one and the same. Same with the preview panel and the info panel. But if there are multiple panels in a frame, you can access those different panels by clicking on their names here. Used to be distinct tabs there, but now they're just names. If there are more panels in a frame than you have room to see all the names, you access them by a chevron. Notice here in the timeline panel down here, all these little timelines, there's more than we can see, so that chevron shows up on the right-hand side there. You click on that, and it shows all of the various panels inside that frame. So if I want to go, let's say, to the 3D camera animation timeline, which is not visible here, I click on that, and then it becomes visible. If I want to go back to the first one here, I go back to the chevron again and click on the green screen to go back to the first one we were looking at moments ago. These are not all the panels that are available inside After Effects. To see all those panels, you go to the Window menu. These are the panels inside After Effects, and they're in alphabetical order, sort of. There's a group of them here in alphabetical order. And then there are the important panels down here, and they're in a separate group, also in alphabetical order. Now the check mark means that they're currently forward. So for example, over here I've got the project panel forward right now, but the effect controls panel is behind it inside this frame. If I go down here and click on effect controls, that'll bring it forward. The project panel is still available. If I click on its name, it'll pop up there. So to show one more here, here's the character panel. It's currently switched off. It's right there, kind of tucked away inside that frame. Click on it, and now the character panel is forward. I'll give you just a basic sense of what these panels are about. The composition panel shows what's going on down here in the timeline. The footage panel gives you a preview of an item that you've got over here inside the project panel. So if I go to the assets, for example, and double click on the Pacific Coast, that'll display the Pacific Coast there as a preview. If you click the name of the file here, it'll show you other things inside the panel. There's the green screen that we saw moments ago. We can switch back to that like that. The layer panel displays a layer down here. So if I double click on this layer, it'll open up here inside the layer panel. So sometimes you work on layers individually inside the layer panel. Sometimes you preview things inside the footage panel, but most of the time you view things inside the composition or comp panel. Over here is the project panel where you have all the assets that you're working on inside your project. Not only assets that you import, but also comps or compositions, and then different kinds of layers that you can add to your composition. In this case, things called solids. If you click on the Effect Controls tab here, this will display any effects that have been applied to a particular layer. And you remember before I talked about how 3 effects were applied to this one to make that green screen go away. If I click on that layer, and they show up here inside the Effect Controls panel, those 3 effects there were what made that green screen go away. And then the curves gave them kind of a warmer look. If you open it up, you can see the curves affected like that. When you work with text, the character and paragraph panels will open up. And when you work with the paintbrush, by clicking on the paintbrush tool here, you'll get the brushes panel and the paint panel. I want to differentiate one quick thing here. Over here is Effect Controls, and over here is Effects and Presets. 2 different things. This is where you control an effect. This is where you find the effects that you want to add to a layer. Now this workspace is eminently customizable. All sorts of things you can do with it in terms of the size of the frames and which panels you want to have in the frames. There are also some preset workspaces up here that Adobe created in terms of how your workflow might work. And I explain these presets and how to customize your workspace in the next lesson.